Hello, welcome back to COCBLOK, the Coalition of Craft Beer Lovers of Kentucky on 93.9 FM, WLXU. I am Matt.
And I am Jeff.
And we're here to talk about beer because beer is life, and it makes you feel good, and it brings our community together. I know. Two weeks in a row.
Jinx, you owe me a soda. Jinx, you owe me a soda.
Unbelievable. Man, happy to be here, though.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. Are you not?
How's your day going?
It's been uneventful, which is good.
That's good.
But
have you had a beer?
Not today, no. I actually wanted to swing by. A lot of times I like to try to go by West 6 or one of the other local places on the way up here just to try something new. I didn't have time this morning. Ran into some people at the bank, some friends, stop talk, real boring stuff, nothing exciting, but should have some exciting stuff this weekend.
That is a cool story, bro.
I know, it's you asked me and it's like a horrible answer. It's really boring. So what's been going on with you? Oh, nothing. I'm just a loser.
Well, it's just a beautiful day in Lexington, Kentucky. The temperature is about 88 degrees. Skies are blue, and we're ready to talk about some beer today.
How was your Father's Day?
Oh, I'm one of these guys who doesn't believe in any holiday. Matter of fact, I don't want to celebrate anything. I don't want to celebrate birthday. I don't want to celebrate the Christian ritual because I'm not a Christian. I don't want to celebrate Mother's Day, Father's Day, Sister's Day. But I got to say, my kids made me feel pretty good. So what they did was they spent all day Saturday. They took an old box, I guess I got from a trade or something. They wrote something like the Daddy Beer Company and the return address and addressed it to me.
So they try to make it look like a box of beer that you got from a friend or something.
I was at yoga that morning, and I came back, and there was this box on the porch. I was like, oh, Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Well, who's delivering anything on Sunday? And look, and I see this label. I'm like, oh, I get it. I open it up, and they have taken a bunch of bottles of beer, and they've made their own labels and put them on and taped them all over the beer with all kinds of private jokes like, go to your room, IPA. Can I play Xbox Pale Ale from the 5 Poops a Day Beer Company?
I got like 2 cases of those.
And so I put some of these pictures up on my Facebook. If you're Facebook friends with me,
awesome.
You can see them. And it definitely made my day that... that moment when your family just knows who you are, right?
Yeah.
They get you.
Yeah.
He's like, you get me right here in the,
And for
inside.
you're a drunk, so they want.
Yeah, and they know I'm basically a functional alcoholic.
Awesome.
Who thinks only about beer. And so then after we did all that, we celebrated even further by heading out to our sister city, 70 miles down the road in Louisville.
Louisville, yeah.
We got to check out a couple places that we hadn't been before. The first was, which you said, we talked a little before the show started, is Third Turn.
Yes.
And Third Turn Brewing in Jeffersontown, which is, I guess, the eastern suburbs of the Louisville city. Pretty small little area, but this is an old church that they have put a brewery in. I think they've been there maybe a year or so.
Okay. I've been noticing there's more than one brewery trying to set up shop in an old church. That seems to be like a new fad.
Yeah, there was one.
Black Abbey in Nashville. Yeah. What is it?
There's one in
Cincinnati.
There's Urban Artifact in Cincinnati.
Isn't Taft's also in an old church?
Taft's, which is gorgeous. Redo. There was one also in Indianapolis who went to Saint something. Maybe even has a churchish name to it.
That's Saint Elsewhere.
Saint Elsewhere, great show. Awesome show.
Wow.
Awesome show.
Saint Somewhere. Or no, wait.
Howie Mandel was in that show.
Nice.
Saint Somewhere. No, it's called. I can't remember now. But we've been to it. But anyways, the Third Turn. 20 taps. 10 of their own. Beautiful little fancy sampler trays when you get a flight. Although nobody labeled what the beers were in the flight, and they weren't really in the order I picked them, I could tell. So I had to kind of guess.
You know what's kind of fun about that? You gotta figure it out.
Like, which porter is this?
Yeah.
And, which stout is this? But it's a pretty cool little space, I think. We got there only a few minutes after it opened, and people were already in there hanging out with their dogs, drinking beer, laughing, singing, enjoying the wonderful day. And then we headed about 15 miles down the road to Old Louisville Brewing.
Okay.
Which is another fairly recent, I think, Louisville brewery. Maybe a year or so old as well, maybe less. Another really cool little space in Old Louisville, which I guess is a section of Louisville called, which I assume is old. It must be the older.
It's not new Louisville, that's for sure.
Must be the older part of Louisville, I suppose. I don't know. It's on a side street.
Okay.
Another nice little space. No flights, but really inexpensive 5-ounce pours.
Okay.
And popcorn.
And popcorn. How about the beer? Let's segue into what you've been drinking.
I thought decent beers. I thought some decent beers. I think it. I thought the standout at Third Turn for me was probably the Cowboy Coffee stout. Was it a stout? It's a brown ale. I think they do a coffee brown ale called Cowboy Coffee.
Okay. Hence the term cowboy is supposed to be coffee. Okay.
I thought that was pretty good. They had a summer sour, which I didn't think was very sour. But they had a really big, rich porter I enjoyed, and a pineapple IPA, which wasn't bad.
Okay.
Old Louisville has a nice rye IPA, I think, on, and a barrel-aged version of that rye IPA done in 4 Roses barrels.
What's your opinion on the barrel-aged IPA? It's pretty polarizing from what I've seen from most people.
So I guess Founder's Doom is back on the market.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the bottles that my kids had bought in fake.
Really?
I'm like,
Yeah.
we bought a bottle. Why are you wasting our money on this?
Yeah.
But we have a Founder's Doom if anybody's interested in one.
Because you don't want it?
I thought it was okay. Did you think I thought Founder's Doom was pretty decent when it first
I like
came
it
out.
because it's different.
It's different.
It's very unique. You take a strong double IPA,
Right.
aged in a bourbon barrel. Kind of seems like it defeats the purpose, but you get a little bit of the nuance of each one. I think it's very interesting.
Have you had the new batch of Doom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of.
I probably gave it a pretty decent review the first time it came out. I haven't tried the newer batch yet.
Yeah.
I'll try it soon. I think it's, look, anything in a barrel is going to taste like a barrel more or less. I think, like last week, I went over to West 6 and had the rum barreled brown, which tasted like rum.
Yeah.
I mean, did you try that?
Is that the Slap Happy?
It's a different one. It's in the main tap room, not in the barrel
I don't think
room.
I've had that one. I could have tried it if I went over there today, but
tastes like rum.
Okay.
Maybe after the show you can head over there and
maybe I will
have a beer.
Yeah.
So those were, but I ended up a pretty nice day for Father's Day with 15 new ticks. That's actually 16 because we came home and had a bee nectar cherry chipotle. So 16 new ticks in one day.
I think I've had that one. Is it spicy?
A little spicy. Yeah, it's got that nice sweet cherry beginning and then boom, gets a little heat in the end.
Bee nectar is like, they've kind of like what I guess maybe Sierra Nevada or Stone are to craft beer. I feel like they are to mead because they've been around for a little while and they've been distributing for a lot of places. And mead is really starting to pick up, and it's like Bee nectar's been there the entire time.
Some pretty affordable meads.
Yeah. And well, relatively speaking.
I mean, they're 375 milliliter bottles.
Yeah. But they're still like $15 or something.
It's not Superstition, which, by the way, I did get a chance recently to try the Superstition peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, what did you think of it?
You've had that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, huh?
That's good.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
I don't think I could have drank that whole bottle, but
no, and that's the thing. Those things are pretty decadent. But what the great thing about it, it's a still product. It's non-carbonated, so a lot of those, like the peanut butter and jelly mead, it's actually got a flip top growler, so you could reseal it. Mm-hmm. I opened a 750 milliliter bottle of Schramm's the Statement, which is their cherry one, like 2 weeks ago. And like I'll just get like a few ounces as a nightcap every couple of days, and I still got a little bit left. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Still good.
Yeah,
mead will stay.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest qualms people have with big bottles of beer is that you have to share it, or it's gonna go bad, or you're gonna get drunk, basically. So
I think a couple of letdowns for the week, I would say, if we can do letdowns. The New Holland Dragon's Milk Mexican Spice. Yeah. I don't know where the Mexican spice was. The one I had tasted just like chocolate cherry cola. Okay. It was not very good. Okay. And the Stone.
I mean, that doesn't sound bad the way you say it, but
but I want that. I was buying it for the cinnamon and the vanilla. I didn't get any of that. The Stone. They just got a bad bottle. The Stone Ruin 10 Triple IPA with orange peel and vanilla.
You didn't like that?
I drank the whole bottle, but I was kind of like, there's something a little weird about that vanilla and orange coming together for me.
There's been a lot of people doing that whole milkshake style.
But was it milkshakey to you?
Well, I don't think any of them are. Yeah, I've had it. I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was okay.
I think that style is getting. There's a new fad. Every other month there's a new fad, and this whole milkshake IPA thing seems to be going around. People adding vanilla beans and lactose and like sweet ingredients to a hoppy IPA.
It didn't taste like a milkshake to me.
No, and none of them really ever do.
Like some of the Omnipolo ones kind of have that hazy milkshake. I
still don't think even those do.
No,
I think they're good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I don't know where the term milkshake does come from. I think it's just because
all the boys in the yard.
Well, obviously they're not.
Comes from all the boys in the yard.
Yeah, is that is that where you meet all your boys?
But lots of beers this week. I think another one I would point out is maybe one that I point out as a really nice one was Funky Booty Juicing Room.
Okay.
That was it was a blueberry
juicing
room, a blueberry barrel aged stout.
Okay,
but I'm gonna bring a couple Funky Booties to your house this week.
Do you like the fruity stouts, the fruited stouts?
It just depends. that blueberry and chocolate really went together well. I think
when they're like they're subtle and they're balanced, I think they're amazing.
Blizzard of Cos, no.
That's overpowering.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I didn't dislike that beer though. I bought one to kind of put back and give it a couple years to see if that fades. A lot of those Founders adjunct bottles, like the high gravity beers that have lots of like flavor from peppers or fruit or something like that, I find myself wanting to put a bottle away for a couple years to let all that aggressiveness subside, because a lot of those are I don't think they're bad. I think it's just too much. And I think like the mango habanero, I think the sweet repute of the Founders like special releases, I think you give those a couple years, I think they might be really good. I actually have some set back, and I'll probably try them this year, next year, just to see what happens, because I think they would really mellow out.
Yeah, I think I've lost some faith in that Backstage series. There's a new, I'll probably try, I don't think it's a Backstage, but because they're being 12 ounces, there's a malt liquor one coming out from Founders. I might try that in the 12 ounce. I don't want a 22 ounce bottle of malt liquor.
Yeah.
Or 750. But I think on the adjunct, I dig the Funky Buddha adjuncts usually. They're really usually good at how they handle adjunct.
Yeah.
Whereas Listerman, I feel like
I still contend
Listerman stuff goes bad so fast.
I think Funky Buddha stuff, I contend that it's all extract and none of it's natural. That doesn't make a difference to me, but I think that's how you get that really,
but they're good
like,
at mimicking
legitimate flavor. Yeah, exactly. Like if it says, apple pie, it tastes like apple pie or something like that.
Bacon, maple, whatever.
Exactly right. I think they just dialed in the extract. I know that Listerman uses extract also, but theirs is just.
I find if I don't drink that Listerman within a week or two or something, if I leave it aside.
Primarily talking about the Chacao, the hazelnut.
A lot of them. They just get bad. Even I had a really nice, I think it was the barrel-aged, one of the barrel-aged Chacaos that comes in the smaller bottle.
The maple?
I forget which one. I have to go back and check. The first time I drank it, beautiful. I had another one in the fridge for maybe 5-6 months. In the fridge. Awful.
Just fell off.
And I've seen that with a number of their beers. They just seem to fall off quickly.
Yeah.
Some people don't agree with me on this issue. I know it's a very controversial issue. I've gotten a lot of email, a lot of voicemail.
I've gotten a lot of email.
Death threats, but I'm just not digging those beers. And you can buy them usually in the shelves at Jungle Gyms rather than wait in line.
Yeah.
But I haven't been digging. But I don't think they're that good at the adjuncts as much as Funky Buddha is at mimicking a lot of interesting flavors, like what was Last Snow.
Yeah.
Just really nice.
I think Listerman had kind of gotten, some popularity with the Chacao series, which is the hazelnut double brown ale. I think, right off the bat, I think it's too sweet. I would like, a few ounces here and there. It's actually pretty good. A 12-ounce bottle even is just too much. You stick that in a bomber, and it's like, I've drank a whole bomber by myself before, and I kind of wanted to die. Like, it's a horrible feeling after you finish a bottle of that, just like candy syrup sugar.
Did you ever pick up the rest of your beers from the club?
I have it. I still have some at home. And then they did the whole Chacao membership, which I did for 2 years.
Right, that's what I meant.
And it's nothing but that beer. And after like the first couple of allotments, you kind of start to, figure out like I can't consume all this. Like it's painful.
Too much.
It's painful, and it's just I'm done with it. I wish they would actually do a beer club where they switch stuff up, but I don't know. Honestly, most of their stuff has just kind of been okay after
beer
that.
clubs feel exciting at first because you're getting something supposedly interesting and different. But I know in that case, I don't think I would join that club. And also the 2 hours of driving there and back is not for me, unless I'm already doing something up there.
That's the thing. Me and my wife like to go up there every once in a while, but it's just not worth it anymore.
So what have you been drinking?
Well, before the last show, I did go to West 6, and I had that Galaxy IPA, which we talked about, and I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, agreed.
I got a bottle of the barrel-aged stock ale, and I opened it right away. And I still think that on draft, that West 6 stock ale, that's bourbon barrel-aged, is probably the best thing to come out of that brewery.
I loved it on draft. Didn't try it in the bottle, though.
The bottle, it's the same thing as every big format bottle they put out. It's got champagne yeast in it. I did not verify this with anybody at the brewery, but I mean, it's pretty apparent. You pour it, and it's got like, you don't even have to push it that hard. It'll get a full, 1 inch to 2 inches of head on it, and it's just like all foam. And it's a little bit more dried out than what you would expect from, or what I remember from on draft. It's still great.
But you prefer draft?
I prefer the draft. I think it's still a good beer out of the bottle. I probably won't buy another one, but I would love to see, that beer, be bottled with some sort of more manageable yeast. But they do their own thing, and they're doing a good job. They're successful, so obviously it's working for them.
Have you seen bought the new Sixfold? The tart cherry?
The cherry one.
Which I'm not sure. Again, I'm a little confused. Is this the same tart cherry that's still on draft right now?
Over at West 6?
Or is it a different one? And the other thing, I think they're calling it number 6, but I looked at my notes. And number 6, just for those at West 6, was originally the raspberry, I'm pretty sure, because my notes show that was the raspberry.
I can't keep up with it. I feel like these
numbers are going out of whack here.
I feel like West West 6 releases a six-fold, and they come out pretty quick, but I feel like they jump around.
And they're all different. Right, they're not coming out in order. So we're going. I think there was.
This is West 6.
1 minute it's 12. The next minute we're getting number 6. Also, it's not the same number 6 that used to be number 6. It's a tart cherry, but is it the same tart cherry on the board that's on draft? Very confusing.
They've all been really good though.
Yeah, I think for the most part they're really good. I like the I think it's the base, just the West 6 sour with the green bottle.
Okay.
I think, you know what I'm talking about? It's still on the shelf. You can still buy it, but it was really, that was probably my favorite of all the 6-folds.
I had the, going back to Omnipolo, the COCBLOK.
Getting a lot of local attention.
I saw the 4-pack and I picked it up. This beer is so weird. Now, Omnipolo is like the king of adjuncts. Adjuncts meaning just a bunch of like stuff that's not necessary to make a beer, but they throw it in there just to add more flavor.
It's one Swedish guy.
The brewery is? Okay.
Omnipolo.
But this is, it's touted as this, what we're talking about, this whole milkshake style IPA. But they take a hoppy beer and they add, what is it? Vanilla beans, graham crackers, a couple other things. And have you had it?
I've had it.
Have you had it out of a can?
I poured into a glass. Yeah.
Okay. Did you pour the whole thing into the glass?
Yeah, but I didn't pour it all hazy the way everybody else is getting it.
You get the first, 5/6 of the beer, you pour it, and it's hazy IPA. That last ounce or two in the bottom is like brown muck. Yeah, and it's just like sediment, and it just comes out, and it's just like it drips down like motor oil.
It's your graham cracker.
Yeah, it's kind of gross looking. Yeah. But it actually makes the beer feel chalky in your mouth. Like it almost like stops up your throat, like you're like
I
drinking
felt something
dust
in the back of my throat when I drank that, like a dust. Yeah, something kind of hit me in the back. Like,
that's got to be what it is.
It doesn't. Yeast? What is it?
It doesn't feel safe.
No. Did you like that beer?
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It's okay.
It's going back to what we said. It doesn't taste like a milkshake to me. It did taste sweeter than normal, but
some of his other experiments with the hazy milkshakey stuff I like much better than that one.
It's all very kitschy. Yeah. It's the new fad or whatever. But I tried. I got a bottle of the Mexorcist from Three Floyds. It's supposed to be Aztec style IPA.
I didn't see this anywhere. It must have only been in Hamburg and maybe. I was at Trap on Friday, but I didn't. Maybe it was on the shelf when I was there.
I got mine in Hamburg. Yeah. I don't know why they call it Aztec style. It's more piney than normal.
I might pass on it. It's
pretty good.
Did you already drink it?
Yeah.
Was it all right?
Yeah, it's all those Three Floyds IPAs. They're good. They're all just kind of similar.
I don't know if I'll buy that.
The standout for me, surprisingly, was the McPoyle Milk Stout from Mile Wide. Did you try that? Mm-hmm. That is, the traditional kind of lighter gravity or lighter ABV milk stout. That's probably the best one I think that I can recall ever having of that traditional style where it's like 5 or 6% alcohol.
Milk stout.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have to look at my notes on milk stout. Some of them are really good.
Yeah. But most of them are just they're too light.
Some are really lactose heavy though.
Yeah. Well, this one's got the body of a regular stout, but it's the ABV of a lighter milk stout. I thought it was really good.
I thought it was decent.
I mean, it's just well balanced. I thought it was a really easy drinker. It was really good.
Did you get that on draft around town?
Over at Hamburg, actually. Liquor Bar in Hamburg, they have it on draft.
Starting to see more Mile Wide on draft.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So that was probably my highlight. Still kind of, I don't know. Who do I need to talk to at West 6 to get them to stop using champagne yeast?
I think his name is Frank.
The Tank?
In your butt. That's my son. Everything my son is in. Do you know where that remote control is? In your butt.
In your butt.
This morning he goes, where's the iPad? Because we use the iPad to turn the TV on. Where's the iPad? I go, in your butt. So he pulled down his pants and looked in his butt. He goes, I don't see it.
Did he find it? No.
He goes, I don't see it there.
Oh, well.
He's some kid.
Well, why don't we take a little break and then we'll get into...
Let's get into it, baby.
Get into more talking.
Let's get into it. Let's make it.
Hello. Welcome back to COCBLOK, which stands for the Coalition of Craft Beer Lovers of Kentucky on 93.9 WLXU FM. I am Matt.
I'm Jeff.
And I got... You ever seen those Nest cams?
Oh, what?
Those Nest cams that you can put
in
your house?
Nest?
Well, it's called Nest, but it's like a security camera.
Is it for birds?
It could be.
Is it a camera you put in a bird's nest?
It could be. If you're into that sort of thing.
That sounds awesome.
That's kind of creepy, but...
You got one?
Yeah. Well, I got some pointed outside of my house. I got some pointed inside of my house.
Can you see it on your phone?
Yeah. I get a notification every time it senses movement, and it's the saddest freaking...
Oh, it's just a still picture.
No, it's actual video.
You've got video streaming?
Yeah, this is live video of my house right now.
Wow, technology has really gone a long way since the Atari. But you see
this one right here? This one's pointed inside the house, and it's the saddest freaking thing. I keep getting a notification every time my dog walks by there, and he'll sit down on that rug and just start looking around for everybody. and he won't see anybody. And it's
Where's
like,
everybody?
yeah, and it kind of makes me want to cry. Like, I'm so sad my dog's just kind of like, can somebody come over here and like hang out with me?
Poor dog.
Sorry, buddy.
You're not doing a good job.
Old Andre the Giant. That's my dog's name.
Andre the Giant.
That's his name, and he is not a giant.
I think we're going to get a dog, but we're having a lot of debate over what the potential name of the dog would be.
Yeah. Don't name him Andre the Giant.
I want to name him Hummus.
I'm going to sue you. Homeless?
Yeah.
How about this beer show? All this beer talk we got going on. I posted an article on the COCBLOK Facebook page a few days ago, and I thought it was an interesting read, and you were actually mentioning it a little earlier. It was actually a blog post from the guys over at East End Brewing up in, are they Massachusetts?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. They're up northeast, and they make the Gratitude beers, which beer nerds are, very fond of. The
Big barley wine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And which apparently they're canning it. I didn't realize that.
So that is insane. Not only it looks like a can, it looks like the bourbon barrel version of that is canned based on this article, which featured the, I guess, owner or head brewer.
Not even like the point of like the discussion of the article, but they mentioned that they're canning bourbon barrel aged.
All of our ears perk up. We go, wait, bourbon barrel aged Gratitude in a can?
Yeah.
Honey, we're going to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Let's go down there.
Well, anyways, the article was written by, I guess, either the brewer or the owner of East End, and he was at some function, and Anthony Bourdain was in attendance, and
of a cook's tour, and of what's his show on CNN called Destination Unknown?
Yeah.
Parts Unknown, excuse me.
Yeah.
Parts Unknown, known for traveling all around the world, tasting food.
Well, he gets he's got kind of a mixed reputation. He's gone on record multiple times saying that he can't stand craft beer.
Right.
And people that have met him have basically said that he's, kind of an a-hole in person or whatever. Doesn't matter to me, but it was kind of interesting in the article. The guy from East End brought some beer, and Anthony Bourdain tried one, and he was like, oh man, that's really good. And the guy serving the beer said, he pointed to him and he said, that's the guy that makes it. So Anthony Bourdain turns around and he's like, immediately goes into his defense spiel, which is, I don't hate craft beer. Like, to summarize, he basically said, I don't hate craft beer, but I just don't like the way, the people that are into craft beer, how they act around it. And he's referring to, when people go into like a beer bar, or they go to, just like some brewery, and they try a new beer, and everyone's pulling out their cell phones, they're taking pictures, they're logging it on Untappd or something, which is really common for people that are into beer. And it sounds like he's being a butt, but honestly, I mean, there's kind of a lot of validity behind what he's saying.
On the one hand, I mean, I think there's so much going on here with this Bourdain story. First, there's Bourdain, who has that ethos of kind of like, I'm the tough guy. I'm a different kind of foodie. I'm not a frissy foodie. I'm going to the. He always has this thing where he's always talking about, this is how they used to eat it. This is the way it was originally supposed to be done. You eat all the parts and you do it this way. And he romanticizes people in the markets, cooking over open fires and. Okay, there's a little.
He's a purist.
A little bit of a shtick. Also,
he's a purist.
A little bit of a shtick. That's because of the same. And also, the restaurant he came out of, the hall, was not a fancy restaurant, and he wasn't the owner of the restaurant. He was just a cook there who wrote an expose called Kitchen Confidential, which got him fame because he talked about the sex and the drugs that are going on behind the scenes in restaurants. But he does his little shtick on TV where he's looking for the authentic cuisine of any kind of culture. And authentic for him is not going to be craft beer. It's going to be that cold, super cold lager. Like the famous, there was actually a well-known moment maybe a year ago where he had a beer with Obama in Thailand or something like that. And he did the same shtick about the beer they were drinking. Yeah. It's just a cold, whatever the macro lager is, he wants to drink that. Yeah. Now, okay, fine. But he's not the only chef or well-known food celebrity who has put down craft beer. What's his name? Momofuku did the same thing, where he made a big deal about why I hate craft beer. It's a weird contradiction for people who have no problem eating foie gras or anything that's elegant and fancy and prepared by chefs with tweezers. You gotta get the little pieces, and that it takes 3 days to make that demi-glace. And then complaining about someone who's just... And even in the kitchen, they're going to spend time thinking about the food, where it came from, how it was prepared, how craftily... how skillfully it was prepared by artisans, by chefs who are not just... They're not cooks, they're artisans, they're artists. They're doing something complex in the kitchen, whether it's at Noma or at Alinea or the French Laundry. and yet then they drink a beer and they put down the whole experience that the rest of us share. That's very similar to the food experience, but we just do it with beer. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, and it's part of that weird contradiction that you can go to some really elegant, nice restaurants, and the wine list is often superb.
Yeah.
The beer list is a few macros and maybe a basic local craft.
And maybe in that case, it's an issue of education, of opening people's eyes to what is available and like what the different options are, because people like him are assuming, or they're used to seeing, maybe not even like a macro, but maybe like a Hohenstefan or like lager that is really, really good.
Oh, he's not drinking that.
Oh, no, but I'm just saying, like, for an example, that's what the epitome of a craft beer would be to somebody.
He's drinking like what's it called, Pacifico, or he's drinking a Coors Light. I mean, he's drinking the most basic beer you can imagine. And then on the flip side, you have a lot of beer nerds who are willing to spend an incredible amount of money on something that's been sitting in a barrel for a year or two, or that's fermented. Open air fermentation, and then goes into the barrel, etc., and then they go to Taco Bell. Yeah.
Well, I think I think it depends on how it's interpreted, or like a friend of mine in COCBLOK, actually, he lives up in Cincinnati, read that article and he shared another article with me, which he said he thought was interesting, and it was I can't remember specifically what it was or who wrote it, but it was somebody had interviewed what's his name from Hill Farmstead? Sean Hill. Somebody had interviewed Sean Hill and kind of addressed that whole thing that he has, where everybody thinks that he's a dickhead, basically, just because you see him at events and you try to talk to him, and he comes across as very brash, very blunt, and sometimes he'll just ignore you or like not talk to you. And I've had friends that have met him and have said the same thing about him. But in the interview, he actually starts discussing his belief behind beer, and there are some parallels in what you were saying about guys like Anthony Bourdain, where they're more traditional, they're more of a purist, but they're about like seeing it as an art form and appreciating it as an art form. And when you look at the way that craft beer drinkers are now, the people that are really into it, the beer nerds, it's kind of, I don't know if you want to say evolved, but it's almost kind of devolved into this practice of just chasing and finding the next new thing, or predicting what the next big thing is going to be before anybody else can get it. And then you get into like people that are trading, and I don't even want to start on that, because that's just outrageous. Like what some of these beers actually sell for on the secondary market, it's stupid. But there's like this whole like evolutionary, like generation of people that are just after it because it's cool.
That's true of anything. That's true if there's that new Pappy's release where it's going to go in 5-6 figures. There's only a handful of bottles. Or if you go to some of these restaurants and you want to do the tasting menu, you're looking at 3 figures, right, without wine. Yeah. To spend 3 hours.
I agree.
So high 3 figures usually, and that's a meal. Yeah. That's not a beer. I mean, that's a meal, but still, so on that end, I don't think Bourdain or anybody will blink about going to the French Laundry or Alinea in Chicago and dropping that much money on a meal. Yeah. But then they're going to make fun of someone because he dared or she dared take notes. But I think it's the beer they're drinking in a bar.
But I think the point is it's in the motive. Are you spending that much money on the meal because you want to experience it and you want to enjoy it? Or are you spending that much on the beer, for example, because you know that it's rare? But I think you want to brag to everybody else that you had it, or you want to get it and you want to trade it for something else.
But these guys, I mean, all they ever talk about is experience. And when you go to a certain kind of restaurant where the meal, it's not the meal like, okay, there's a steak on your plate. It's like they doing something very whimsical with the food, so it mimics tapioca pearls, mimic ice cream, or there's an aroma produced to mimic another kind of experience, because they're trying to play on emotions and they're trying to play on memories. Well, why can't beer? Why are they upset that beer might do the same for someone? That someone is trying to experience something that they'll never get to experience again. Just like going to Alinea or going to any kind of gastronomical restaurant.
In that context, I think it's
nitrogen is used to make all kinds of things. And what's the difference? Is what I don't understand. Why pick on? And in fact, there's something kind of really elitist, because probably the average craft beer nerd is not that fancy in daily life. No. And it's just spending a small portion of expendable income on something that's not cheap, but not really pricey compared to wine or bourbon or one of these 5-course meals. Yeah. So why pick on that guy? Why not pick on the person who's got enough money to drop 5 figures on a bottle of wine?
I think I think that's true. It does come across anyway as very elitist because stuff like, food as a primary example, even wine, it's been a lot more popular for a lot longer in its diversity. So, it's easier for people like him to say like, oh, well, we can appreciate food and we can appreciate wine for what it is, but we can't appreciate beer because it's not at that level. That's just ignorance.
Because the stereotype of beer, obviously, is beer's blue collar.
Yeah.
Beer's not supposed to be fancy. So that's why that Super Bowl ad from a year or so ago that mocked the craft beer drinking experience, very similar to what Bourdain's doing. Like, we don't I think the line was, we don't fuss over our beer, and we don't make a pumpkin peach ale, which they do now because they bought Elijah, the company, the brewery that does make a pumpkin peach ale. So there's that part of the image or the stereotype of what beer is supposed to be. But I don't know what Bourdain would think if we're hanging out and I start chugging a bottle of Yellowtail in front of him instead of a nicer wine that was available. Yeah. So where it's easier for him to call beer nerds zombies, or to say, I'm sorry, man, I didn't walk 10 blocks to go to that microbrewery. So what if I just drink a dollar amount of
it's so tough we can't say it, I know.
But like, if I drink a bottle of Yellowtail, which is probably not even the worst wine you can drink from the grocery store, but definitely for me one of the worst. Yeah. Right, he's gonna be like, that's cool. No, he's gonna think, what are you drinking that for? I got this fancy wine right here from France that we could be drinking, or from a very small winery in Napa Valley, which is like, he's not gonna get all excited about some boutique winery in Napa. Of course he is.
Yeah. I think someone like him, I think he could come around if he had the proper level or the proper type of exposure to, high quality artisanal type of beer. Bringing it full circle back around to Sean Hill over Hill Farmstead, he, believes wholeheartedly in the process of what he makes, and everything is more or less very pure. It's like he sticks to traditional ingredients. He doesn't, for the most part, he doesn't add, tangerine, orange peel, graham cracker crust, whatever to his IPAs because he more stickler for the purism of it. So I think if someone like Anthony Bourdain was properly exposed to something like that, I think he'd come around. But
he might. But
I think it's probably rooted.
I used to really be kind of a fan of Bourdain, particularly maybe it was No Reservations. When we first did Cook's Tour, that show, and I've taught Kitchen Confidential a couple times in classes.
Really? Yeah. You pulled it? Did you pull it?
Did I pull it?
Yeah. Did you stop it because?
No. I mean, it just was. It was it was doing like food or something like this within a class. I thought it's a really good memoir. Yeah. And it's very funny. Yeah. It's extremely funny. But I think this shtick is getting a bit old with him with the craft beer thing, because it just flies in the face of everything else he does. The pick craft beer of all things. Why not pick bourbon? I mean, if anything's overrated these days, I think it's bourbon, where you don't even know what you're buying.
Well, in his defense, craft beer I think is a lot more popular. It has scaled exponentially in popularity over the past 10 years, more so than anything else. So craft beer is kind of in everybody's face.
But it kind of plays into his ethos to be a contrarian. Or on the one hand, if you know food, he's hanging out with Eric Ripar, who's a really well-known French chef. Very elegant. They hang out all the time on TV, and they're friends in real life. On the other hand, he wants to kind of, at least in his image, distance himself from the hip foodie phenomenon of craft beer, which can also be like taking pictures of your food and putting it on Instagram, which a lot of us like myself do. It's too trendy for him, but he's trendy. I mean, his whole fame is based on his own trendiness of being the New Yorker who's gritty and hard edged, and he also writes crime novels.
Does he really?
Yeah. And at least he used to, and is a foodie at heart. He's a foodie at heart.
He has to be relevant, so he's got to be trendy, or else he's not going to matter. And
I've been watching him for a long time, and he loves to play out the emotional aspects of food. So why care if a young person is sitting at the counter feeling something emotional about what they're drinking? They want to write something down so they can remember it or record it for later so they know they had it. Yeah. Big deal.
I get that. Yeah. All right, well, let's take another short break, and then we'll get into... I want to talk about beer cellars. I think that's cool.
Beer cellars are awesome. Do you have a beer cellar?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you're listening to 93.9 Lexington Community Radio, WLXU FM.
Welcome back to COCBLOK, the Coalition of Craft Beer Lovers of Kentucky on 93.9 WLXU FM. And we talked a little bit earlier about some of the big bottle releases from Founders. And I had mentioned that a lot of those beers are very aggressive. And I usually will take at least one and I'll throw it back in my beer cellar to kind of hold on to see how it develops. Cellaring has kind of really only been popular, I don't know, what'd you say, like past 5 years, 6 years, as far as like with beer goes?
Well, I think it's been around, for a little bit anyways.
I mean, obviously people like
Bigfoot. Sierra Nevada Bigfoot has been cellared by a lot of beer drinkers for quite some time, and I used to do it as
people
well.
have been cellaring beers ever since probably like Belgian beer was being made. But I mean, the popularity of it has really caught on.
It's getting a little more.
Well, the idea is like a traditional wine cellar. Some beer will develop with age and will change. And, you kind of have to make sure you do it properly, just like you would a wine cellar. But, I think there's a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of misconception on, like, what actually beer cellaring is, what you should put in it, what you shouldn't, and how stuff actually does change and what affects it. So,
it's very. I think there's a lot of controversy, a lot of debates within beer world, but also within beer nerds, collectors. So some people about, do you lay the bottle down? Do you stand the bottle up?
Yeah.
At Cantillon, they lay the bottles down, but then there are people who buy Cantillon bottles and stand them up. Lauren Salazar, who is the master blender at New Belgium, who basically came up with La Folie, I think, along with what's his name, the Belgian guy who used to work for them. She said before, why are you guys cellaring New Belgium? I mean, why are you selling La Folie? We've already cellared it for you.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to cellar it. When it hits the shelf, drink it, was her point for a lot of their beers.
La Folie's not pasteurized.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I'm sorry, okay.
But her point was, in a lot of cases, the brewery feels they've already done the cellaring for you.
Yeah.
They put the beer aside. There's no reason. They think it's ready.
Of course.
There's no reason to keep putting the beer in your cellar or your closet or your shoebox or your grandma's house or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's two versions of the word beer cellar, or the phrase beer cellar, that I've kind of picked up on. The traditional root term, which is, a place of even cool temperature that you can store said beverage so that it can develop over time to be enjoyed at a later date. What I've noticed in some of the really like hardcore beer nerd circles, and like you see a lot of people online talking about it, beer cellar has taken on a whole another term. It's kind of annoying to me. I just said a whole nother too, which I hate when people say that. Has taken on another type of context, and it's that it represents how much really good beer you have. And people talk about like...
It's showing off.
People talk about like the quote-unquote whales, like the really hard-to-get bottles, the really popular ones, the really expensive ones. And it's become a place to store your nice beer that has become a trophy and not necessarily something to drink, but you get something in there that you shouldn't be selling.
There was, I think I wrote about this in my book, there was a video circulating a few years ago of a guy who went into his cellar and he took the camera and he just started moving through shelf to shelf, and we're looking at an enormous amount of money being spent on beer, but we're also looking at showing off because of the this quote-unquote rare beers he has down there that he wants you to see on camera, but I mean, he hasn't consumed them, and who knows.
They're trophies is what they are.
And the thing is, they're trophies that have a shelf life. Despite what we think, when we put something in our cellar, the beer is meant to have a shelf life. Some beers will last 20 years. That's true.
Yeah. Some will last 20 days.
But some will last 20 days. And some beers, you think you're doing a favor to yourself by putting 3 bottles, 4 bottles, or whatever of something hard to get and then not touching it. Yeah. Wait till you go to open it. It may not.
Yeah, and you're kind of like.
Good. You may have wasted a lot of money and time on something that wasn't never meant to sit that long. Yeah.
Well, traditionally, in my experience, the better beers to put away, and you also got to understand that cellaring a beer isn't going to automatically make it better. It might get a lot worse, but you're also not going to take that thin, tinny 5% stout and sell it for 2 years and it's going to turn into this viscous 10% beverage. It doesn't work that way. It will develop, it will change. Usually most of the flavors get muted, but the idea is that if, going back to the Founders example, if you get something that's really aggressive, put it back for a year, maybe 2, and see if those flavors kind of mellow and they kind of even out a little bit.
I've had Canadian breakfast stout fresh, Canadian breakfast stout cellared.
Yeah.
I'll take the fresh.
Yeah, exactly right. Canadian breakfast stout was, for the longest time, it was the reigning most popular, the best beer from you could get, but it's from Founders. But yeah, it's a coffee-laden stout, and that coffee fades really
Beers
fast.
of adjuncts.
Yeah.
This stuff fades. It's not going to last. I think there's intentional cellaring where you're really trying to, you think you're, or you're trying to make flavors pop in a way that you think will over time. And for some beers that will happen. There's a really nice book by Patrick Dawson, in fact, called Vintage Beer: A Taster's Guide to the brews that improve. It's a nice overview, as we're saying, about certain kind of high gravity beers, or even sometimes low gravity that will age nicely. And he's done the experimentation. And then there's like my experience, where I call accidental cellaring. I just bought too much stuff,
and it's like, hey, where'd this come from?
And I'm like, oh man, that beer is like from 2009, and I kind of forgot about it. And I never drank it. And then should I take it to someone's house? And then if I do, are they gonna look at me like, what are you doing, dude?
Why are you wasting our time?
Why are you wasting our time on this old beer? Because I think I need to get rid of it.
Well, the higher gravity stuff, in my experience, tends to cellar better. Although I will say that a lot of the stouts that I've had, I don't think they really improve. I think a good example of a popular cellared stout is the very common Stone IRS, the Imperial Russian Stout. I think that one holds up well, and I had this discussion with Jason and Bradford the other day, but I don't think it really improves. I think, if you hold on to it for 2, 3, 4 years, it'll kind of like meld together some of those flavors. I don't think it gets any better, but it definitely doesn't get any worse.
On the other hand, the Stone Vertical Epic series, where they put out the new beer every year, was to 2000. It was like from 2002 till
2012, was it?
12, I think.
I think it's like 10-year series.
It was meant to be cellared. They wanted people to put aside a bottle, and then at some point open them all at once. And I was lucky that Chris Vandegrift invited me to. He had done that and invited me to taste some of that. So we got to sample that line, and it was interesting to see how they had aged over time. So I mean, that was interesting. That was a good experiment. As takes money. You got to put aside a bottle every year, and also takes awareness. Because when I first started drinking those Vertical Epics, I never even thought about this is supposed to be put aside.
Well, and it's interesting because they're all actually different styles. But the predominant style that permeates through them is the Belgian style of beer, which is, I think I don't have a lot of Belgian beers that I put back. So I can't speak to, And
Orval is a Belgian beer you're supposed to put back. Or try it at different stages, because it's going to be different over time, and it's intended to be different as the Brett changes over time and changes the nature of the beer.
But I think some of the Belgian lambics are also very good candidates, very popular. Like going back to the Cantillon example, obviously they've been selling beer for years, but it's more out of necessity probably. But then that whole thing about laying him down versus standing him up, I mean, I think that's all. I think it's a farce. Honestly, in wine
of touching the cork.
Well, the idea in wine is supposed to it's supposed to keep it moist, but I don't think that just exists in beer. It's not the same thing. But I've also seen him actually say, and he's been quoted as saying, the only reason I lay it down is because I don't have space to stand them up.
It's more spatially conservative.
If you've seen pictures of their underground bunker where they have bottles, I mean, he fits this crap in there as tight as you can get. He's got them alternating in stacks on top of each other. I'm amazed the bottom bottles don't just shatter, because he's literally stacking the bottles on top.
But it means it's not harmful, at least in Cantillon's case, to lay it on its side.
It's not harmful, but it's not. I don't think it's necessary. For people to say that you have to lay it on side, I think it's kind of ridiculous.
I think when I first started collecting, sort of quote unquote collecting beer, when we lived in Missouri, I had one of those little wine racks. And I'd put the beer on its side, of course, in the wine rack. And it sat in our living room for some reason, and then later in the basement. But then it's then you read all these debates online. People say, no, don't do that. Don't put it on its side, particularly if it has a cap, because you don't want the liquid in contact with the cap, or you don't want to dry out the cork if there's a cork. And then the other people say, no, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. You lay them down. You don't stand them up. And so the whole debate was just too confusing for me that I stand them in my cellar. I don't care anymore.
I think standing is perfectly fine, whether you have a cork or whether you have a cap. I think it's irrelevant. Honestly.
It's irrelevant. I try not to hold beer too long. I mean, I do have I have a Life and Limb from the Sierra Nevada Dogfish. That's still pretty. I have an old Rivertown sour, which I think I just never got around to drinking.
That same way. I've got 4 or 5 Rivertown. I thought they were really good.
Bunch of Dogfish. A bunch of Dark Lords that over the years.
Dark Lord, I think, has been a horrible beer. Like the older it gets, tons. It doesn't get any better.
Bigfoots. I used to collect the Bigfoots. I don't even remember seeing the last years, but probably because I wasn't paying attention.
Now the barrel aged Bigfoot, I think, is a great candidate to put back, because it's got a lot of sharp flavors. It's an American
I think I have
style.
One of those.
It's an American style barley wine aged in bourbon barrels, so it's got that really aggressive hop profile and something that is so high gravity and so boozy. So you give it like a year, and then like a lot of that sharpness just kind of rounds out, and then you get this much smoother barley wine, which I'm a huge fan of English barley wines anyway.
Right.
So, the hoppier American ones, I think it tastes better with time.
I have a lot of Bourbon County stouts still laying around.
I've never really thought Bourbon County Stout has not gotten any
I do
better.
think it actually. I've had some. I remember maybe having one last year that was 3 years old. That was fantastic.
I've never had one that I thought was better than when
I think
I had
the
it
Stone
fresh.
30th anniversary is aged well. An Expedition, I used to like to buy a lot of us. Not Stone. I mean Bell's 30th was aged really well, and Bell's Expedition I used to buy a lot of in the winter, so that the next winter I would enjoy them.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I'm huge. The two biggest ones that I always hold back, and I'll get like a case. Well, I've been starting to buy a case every year. Is the Founders Backwoods Bastard,
Right.
bourbon barrel aged. I think that's actually a wee heavy. Well, anyway, that one tastes really good with about 2 years on it.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite of all time, the cellar that you can get, and it's pretty readily available when it comes out, is the Dogfish Head Old School.
Old School age is nice.
Oh God, and it's another example. Like fresh, it's hot. Like it'll burn. It's a boozy beer. But after I remember I went up to Cappy's over in West Loveland, just outside of Cincinnati, and they had one that was on tap, and it was 5 years old, and it was just like.
What's your opinion on aging Dogfish 120?
Dogfish Head 120 completely turns into something different.
Right.
That's one of those. I don't even want to say it's an anomaly, because when you drink it fresh, you can tell that if you give it some age, it will completely transform. And it's just a super aggressively hopped, way overly boozy beer straight out of the bottle. But
I prefer fresh.
It bites,
Yeah, I prefer the fresh version.
I think 5 years old, it turns into like a really robust barley wine.
I saw it. I'm sorry if I'm making fun of you for doing this. I forget who it was, but I think it was on our Facebook group that someone had bought from a local retail establishment's cellar list a several years old Dark Horse Double Crooked Tree. Now, Double Crooked Tree is a double IPA. It's meant to be drunk fresh.
Yeah.
So you've paid more money to buy what was meant to be a fresh double IPA. It's been sitting now in a cellar for 3 or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You're drinking a barley wine, basically. You're not drinking the same. So it's changed. I'm sure it's changed dramatically. I just can't imagine that it's changed for the best.
Yeah, and that's one of those things I think comes down to experimentation. Because that particular beer, it's they don't. I don't want to say they're not trying to showcase the hops, but you can tell that it's a pretty malt forward.
It's a malt forward, but hoppy beer.
Strong hoppy beer. I mean, I don't think I pay a lot for it, but I'd be curious to see what that would be like in time.
I guess.
Give it a little bit of age.
I prefer to drink. I also have friends who accidentally cellar Hop Slam.
Yeah,
and they buy so much of it, they don't finish it, and sits in their cupboard for a few months, and then they go back to it like, oh, come on, man.
See, there's a difference between like an aggressively hot beer that like rounds out and turns into like a nice barley wine, and something like Hop Slam, which is just a malty mess. Yeah. And like once those hops go away, it just tastes like malt sugar.
I really don't know that, and maybe I'm contradicting myself, obviously, because I do have a lot of put away beers.
Yeah.
Except for certain beers, maybe the ones in particular I put away, I don't really enjoy old beer overall.
Yeah.
It depends. There's some exceptions, of course, and Cantillon would be a huge exception.
Yeah.
Tilken, I have some Tilken that even I was sitting with you one day, and I was like, you're right, I got to put these aside.
Yeah.
I got to get these and put them aside. But otherwise, I think for a lot of breweries' products that are put aside, whether I just don't think they age well, or I don't like them as much later on.
Yeah. Well, so what do you like? For example, the Founders Backwoods Bastard and Dogfish Head Old School, I think are fantastic, especially that Old School. I mean, I've never had an American-made beer that ages that gracefully.
I agree with you on those.
And I would say that one, if any beer actually improved with age, that would be the one. What are some things that people could actually get?
I do like, and I can't speak for the recent iterations of Bourbon County because I didn't buy last year's, and I have one left from the year before. But the older Bourbon Counties, I do think age really well and nicely. I love Bell's Expedition, and I can drink that with age because it does take on some really interesting notes.
I think
over time.
Bell's Expedition Stout Fresh is a little licoricey for me.
Of course, it's one of my favorite stouts. Anyway,
does that kind of round out for you? Okay.
Yeah, but maybe sometimes it can get a little bit oxidized in a good way.
Yeah.
And take on some sherry notes. Yeah. But it really works well with the overall heaviness of Expedition because it's a big stout to begin with. Yeah. So I think those are beers that are readily available. Yeah. That I don't have any hard any thoughts about putting aside?
Yeah. There's one huge caveat to the Goose Island Bourbon County beers is that they're pasteurized now.
Now they are, yeah.
Because that debacle
That's why
with the recall.
I'm not speaking about the last 2 years worth, but before that, I would put some aside. And I have pulled. I really should pull some more Bigfoot out and see how they're doing.
And that's not to say a pasteurized beer won't develop, but I mean, ideally they kill the yeast, so like it's not going to really change unless it just oxidizes to death.
I have some really old, also Lost Abbey sours, but I think they get too vinegary over time. And now, and also Founder's Nemesis. I still have some Founder's.
You still have some Nemesis?
I still have the 2 years that Nemesis was produced.
Was that 2008, 2009?
Yeah, it's before I moved here. We bought them.
Golly.
So I still have some of those laying around, and that's
going on a decade, man.
I don't know that they're going to be all that great.
No.
You know, but I haven't hosted in a while, but I want if people are hanging out to say, okay, let's try this, man, and just pull them out. That's why I don't drink by myself.
Actually, now that I think about it, one of the most impressive beers I've ever had with age was actually our friend Emily. Mm-hmm. We were over at our mutual friend Kevin's house,
right?
And we were talking about hosting and somebody bringing it. She brought it was a semi-L's, or it might have been the Beast.
Avery.
Yeah, but it was the Avery Demon Series. Huge, 15-16% beer.
Are big beers.
Yeah, and they're 12-ounce bottles, and fresh. They're almost undrinkable. Honestly, it's like drinking gasoline. But she brought one that was 7 years old, and it was.
I would guess that.
It was amazing. Yeah. I'm actually really sad that they discontinued that series, but I can understand why, because to the layman that wants to buy a beer off the shelf and drink it, that stuff's hard to drink.
It's also
fresh.
Not cheap.
No, and
I had a cashier, I think on Richmond Road, look at me like, oh, that must be a mistake, son.
Yeah,
no, that's
right. Yeah, well, I started putting a bunch of those back, so hopefully I got a small vertical of the different demons. And
next time I'm at your house, I think I'm going to bring a shopping bag with.
All right, just walking.
Yeah.
I'll take 2 of these and 3.
Matt, I think there's something wrong in your bathroom upstairs. You should go up and check it.
Yeah. Every quick, put this on my car. Yeah. So we'll see, man.
Well, we've said a lot.
Yeah, we went from complaining about beer nerdery to being completely beer nerds.
We said a lot, maybe too much. No complaints. I'm
tired of complaining. And I still wish you would come up.
It's been a pretty decent show.
Yep.
I think we're only going to be able to do a couple more, and then I'm gone.
Yeah.
For July, I'm going to Denmark.
Okay.
But I'll.
Are you going to do the Copenhagen Beer Fest?
I think that's over, isn't it?
I don't know.
No, I'm taking some kids from study abroad.
Okay.
But it should be fun. And you've been listening to COCBLOK, the Coalition of Craft Beer Lovers of Kentucky on 93.9 WLXU FM, Lexington Community Radio.